What's the matchup that matters? I mean, there's a lot, and it's unfortunately like it feels like a lot of letdowns for both these teams. We got Aiden O'Connell now making the start, so he's a starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know how much they have, like at passing attack with Aiden O'Connell. So I mean, how much can you really expect of them? The Steelers' offense really looked like they were playing well, and then that Cowboys game and Sunday Night Football, it just looked like they didn't have any answers for anything really. But I'm curious, where does your mind go for a matchup that matters with the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Las Vegas Raiders?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think, again, I kind of default to the trenches here because of can you allow Aiden O'Connell to do things? Can you protect him? Can this Raiders offensive line protect him against a Pittsburgh defensive line that's really, really good and getting so much production, by the way, out of 35-year-old Cam Hayward? I am 35 years old, Trevor. I crack when I get up out of bed. I cannot, like, I worked through a workout yesterday. I was like, oh, wait, I've got a twinge in my back. Like, 35 years old and being as productive as
We
Cam
got to
Hayward.
warm up. We got to warm up. You got to
We
get the
gotta,
whole stretching
I know.
routine.
I'm stretching in my chair today afterwards. Like, it's all bad. And yet, Cam Hayward, among interior defensive linemen this season, 90.7 PFF grade, which ranks first, 83.7 run defense grade, first, 85.4 PFF pass rushing grade, which is second, 19 pressures, which ranks fifth among interior defensive linemen. I mean, this guy is so productive, and I haven't even talked about TJ Watt yet. So, can you protect Aiden O'Connell from guys like that when the Raiders O-line ranks fourth worst, 60.1 PFF grade and 48.0 PFF run blocking grade, which is dead last. So like if you want to try to run the ball, good luck. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go for the Raiders in particular. Making the change at quarterback again, also kind of getting rid of the gamesmanship of all of it. That speaks to, I think, the inexperience of Antonio Pierce as a head coach when you had the opportunity to say, well, we don't know who we're going to start between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Like, you have two built-in quarterbacks, and it's something that Bruce Arians used to say all the time when I was with Tampa. If you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And that is so far the case for these Las Vegas Raiders. And they're going to get a really big test against this defensive line.
Yeah, I'll flip over to the other side because you're certainly your matchup that matters talks about how much the Raiders offense can kind of get going. I'm wondering with this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I was praising Justin Fields for the progression that he has made as a player, even as soon as last week. And I'm not letting one game against the Cowboys totally take away from that. But specifically, my matchup that matters is helping Fields out. And when I say helping Fields out, I mean, we got to figure out what the hell is going on with George Pickens here, because the answer that Mike Tomlin gave, where he's like, oh, we were just rotating wide receivers like we rotate, defensive linemen, keeping them fresh. That does not work. I mean, like that's not what you do, because when you look at Pickens' production, so the stem of this argument for anybody that missed it, George Pickens, and I'll get to his stats in a second, 34 offensive snaps last week against the Dallas Cowboys. Right. Calvin Austin had snaps in the 40s. Van Jefferson had snaps in the 40s. So both Calvin Johnson, they wish Calvin Johnson.
They wish, I was going to
say. Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson both outsnapped George Pickens in this past game. Pickens wasn't hurt. He just didn't get as many snaps as this guy. When you look at the statistics, Pickens has a 25.8 threat percentage. No other wide receiver has above a 12.5 this season. When you look at Pickens, 13 first down catches. Rest of the team combined has 7. Pickens, 310 receiving yards this season. Rest of the team combined, 232. You better figure it out with George Pickens, because there's no other answers here. For 2 weeks, we talked about, when Roman Wilson comes back, when Roman Wilson gets healthy. Roman Wilson's been a healthy scratch the last 2 weeks. So clearly they don't need him in the lineup or think that they need him in the lineup. So without Pickens, this is a totally limited offense, especially when it comes to the passing game. And you could say to yourself, all right, well then, maybe they could run the ball a little bit more if they don't want to have Pickens in the game, if there's something going on in the locker room or his relationship with the head coach. Carmen, they can't run the ball any more than they are right now. The third in the NFL in rushing attempts at 165. And yet, after having the volume of third in total rushing attempts, they're 23rd in EPA per rush, they're 23rd in yards after contact per attempt, and they're 27th in yards before contact per attempt.
Not great.
What's going on with the offense? If you don't figure out with George Pickens, I don't know what this offense has. I really don't, even for as well as Justin Fields is playing. And I can already see myself getting mad because if the Steelers offense looks you know, very lukewarm again this week. People are going to blame Justin Fields. They're going to put Russell Wilson in. And I'm just going to go, it's not Fields' fault. I mean, maybe it'll be Fields' fault, but like at this point in time, I wouldn't say that it's Fields' fault. So I'm kind of frustrated with that. They got to figure it out with George Pickens because they don't have anybody else right now. Plus factor for me though, I'll flip to the other side. It's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers. I mean, you talk about, okay, the Raiders need some sort of spark. I mean, it's got to come through this guy. When you look at Brock Bowers, it's just more of the same of the elite play that he had when he was at Georgia over the 3 straight years that he was there. 82.7 PFF grade, that's first among tight ends. 35 targets, first. 28 catches, first. 313 yards, first. 166 yards after the catch is second only to Tucker Kraft. 15 catches gaining a first down, that's first. 6 catches of 15 yards or more, that's tied for second. I mean, what can't this rookie do? Brock Bowers was unbelievable. You wondered in the draft, it was like, oh, how high do you take a tight end? He is an ultimate offensive weapon for this team. And especially without Devontae Adams, he is a major star for them. So he is my big time plus factor for this one. He could just be a game wrecker for 2 offenses that might struggle. Yeah,
I adore Brock Bowers. I actually really had the Bears being interested in him with that number 9 pick that they instead took Rome Odunze with because of the fact that Shane Waldron loves to use tight ends. Mm-hmm. And we've seen Cole Kmet be a bit of a safety blanket for Caleb Williams. And I can't help but think what would have happened if Brock Bowers was instead the safety net for Caleb Williams with a secondary threat in Cole Kmet. Back to this game and back to a former Bear, I suppose my plus factor is Justin Fields for a lot of the reasons that you outlined before, where we need to see more production out of this offense. The thing with George Pickens just baffles me, given the fact that, all right, you don't rotate your best receiver out like that. Even if you don't target him, you leave him on the field to make a defense pay attention to him, to open things up for your other guys. It doesn't make any sense in the world to pull George Pickens off the field entirely, even if you're not throwing him the ball necessarily all the time. But I think the biggest thing with Justin Fields in Chicago was, who is he throwing to? Does he have enough weapons? This, that, and the other. And it's kind of the same thing all over again, despite the fact that the Steelers do have the weapons to help support Justin Fields and what he wants to do. And honestly, Fields has been really good this season on 10 or more throws of 10 or more yards. And 384 yards on such throws. 2 touchdowns have come. The completion percentage isn't exactly there, but I have to think that would go up if you have George Pickens in the game a lot more. Intermediate throws, 10 for 17, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns there too. So kind of those 10 to 19 yard throws, Justin Fields is doing really well at. And I have to think that George Pickens factors into that. But what you need to see from Justin Fields is that he can go out there and he can win you a game. And that's not something that we've been able to see from him quite yet. And that's kind of that's why that there's still a discourse on what it means that Russell Wilson is healthy now. That's still why there's a discourse on if Russell Wilson is going to come in. Fields has not won the starting job outright. He started the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Russell Wilson was injured. And again, I wonder if he tries to force some things in this game, knowing that Russell Wilson is now healthy and breathing down his neck, if Justin Fields is the one that starts this game, in fact. So I'm really concerned about kind of that competition, I guess. I'm not a fan. We've just talked about it. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. And I saw this in Tampa, in fact, with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick, if you recall that season, where these guys would try. Yes, I'm sure you do. Sure, we both do very, very vividly. Because these guys would go out there and every chance they got, they tried to force things and they tried to prove that they were the starter. And in trying to force things, there were so many mistakes made. And it was just this carousel and rotation of who, comes in, has the spark, then he drops off, gets replaced. That guy comes in, has a spark, drops off, gets replaced. This is not something you want, especially when the Steelers already had a revolving door at quarterback last year. Why do you want to make that the case this year again? So Justin Fields really is going to not only matter a great deal to this Pittsburgh Steelers offense and what they can get going when they're going to have an opportunity to go against a team in the Raiders that has the worst coverage grade of any unit in the league. But it's also going to go a long way in saying, no, I started this season. I'm going to continue being the starter this season when you have a healthy, experienced quarterback in Russell Wilson waiting in the wings.